So now we're going to look at reverbs and delays. Boss have quite a comprehensive delay range. I've chosen my two favourite ones, or ones that I think are pretty essential to have amongst your gear. Just before I move on to showing you the reverbs and delays, just to illustrate the point, I'm keeping a compressor at the front of my chain and that dual overdrive distortion pedal, the OS2, just here, which is it serves a purpose. So at the moment I've got my compressor on, nice and clean, nothing happening, clean channel on the amp. And it's a very kind of basic kind of compressed sound, nothing fancy, just the guitar into the amp. What I must say is that reverbs and delays usually go in the effects loop of an amp, which is where I've got these three pedals set. They're in the effects loop of the amp. If you look at most amps, there'll be an effects send and an effects return. The reason you put them in the effects loop of an amp is because if you're using a distortion on your amp, if you've got a distorted amp, you don't want to put the delays in front of that because they'll just distort all the delays. You want delayed distortion, so the delay has got to come after the distortion section of your amp. So which means if you've got a dirty Marshall or a dirty Fender amp cranking out, the delays will stay nice and clean and just add size behind your sound. So I've just illustrated that. I could have just put them in the front of this clean channel, but I kind of got into the habit of delays and reverbs go in the effects loop of an amp. You can put it into the front of the amp. If you run your amps clean, you can stick them in front. But you can't really run your amp dirty because then they start sort of mugging up and it doesn't sound. Try it, experiment, see what I mean. You plug your amp in, distort it, and then plug a delay in front of it and see how hideous it sounds. It's not a good sound. All right, so let's just take a look at this digital reverb pedal. It's called the RV5. I think it's the current one they do. It's pretty comprehensive. The secret to using, I think, reverb in your sound is not too much of it. Subtlety, especially when you're playing certain venues and it's quite an echoey room. You don't really need more of that on top of the sound, if you know what I'm saying. So I've just got just one of my favourite effects. I use one of these in my pedal board. And it's just one of my favourite ways of using a delay in that, I'm just going to switch the overdrive on, in that, if I switch it on, you can hear I've got a plate reverb very close behind the sound. The actual decay of it is very, very tight. It gives a kind of nice kind of breath. Gives a nice kind of breath behind the sound. So it's very, very subtle. I'm just going to switch it off and on again so you can hear the difference. Here it is off. Here it is on. Plate reverb for me, when you're using guitar, is my favourite. You've got other options. You've got room, hall. You've got gated reverb. Let's take it to maybe. Let's keep on the plate, and I'm going to turn the time up. So the actual decay of the reverb is now going to come up. You're really going to hear a long decay. I'm going to turn the tone of the reverb down. So I want it dark sounding. So you get a kind of a long delay now, but you hear that sort of the reverb behind it. It's a long sort of. Now, if your band's really kicking out and it's a full-on rock band, all this sort of subtlety is going to be wasted. But if there's some sort of light and dark in what music you make, then a reverb is a really, really handy. It's a really, really handy tool to have. There's another little option which is quite nice on this this reverb. If we switch to the gate option, going down just like that. We're now on the gate, I do believe, yeah. And that is like a gated reverb. It's kind of, it kicks a lot of reverb and then it chops it off. So it gates it. So it sort of sounds like this. You can hear it going, stopping. In fact, I'm going to turn up the level of the reverb so you can really hear it. You hear it chopping like that. So that opens up a little possibility. If I take the decay of the reverb down, a bit more tone. Take the level down a bit. I'm just trying to build that kind of sound where it enhances the sound rather than you actually feeling that it's there. That's kind of cool. So again, it's there, you feel it rather than hear it. So it's a really good kind of handy tool to have. I've got one in my pedal board. One last option, which my reverb doesn't have, is I'm going to switch it to this modulate option. It's just the last little option on this knob there. And we're going to go to a clean sound maybe. What it does is it takes the reverb and it kind of gives it a little bit of a wobble on it. So if you can hear that reverb dying away. In fact, I'll turn the level up so you can really hear it. It gives a kind of a wobble to the reverb. So just if I play one note, if you can just hear it die away, it's kind of giving a little bit of a wobble, which is a kind of nice for atmospheric stuff. Really, really cool. So that's the reverb. I wouldn't say a reverb is essential, but it is damn handy to have, and it's one of those things. If you've got a great kind of amp and guitar and you've got a nice tone happening, it's one of those things that people aren't aware that they're hearing it. It adds to the sound, and they can't quite place why your sound just sounds that bit kind of richer or better. And a little bit of reverb tucked behind your signal is a real good secret weapon. So try that one out. Moving on to our delay sort of section. I've got two delays here, a DD3 and a DD6. Now, the DD3 has been around for years and years and years. If you just take it that it's a very, very good digital delay, and if you're into kind of big guitar sounds or just a bit of space behind your sound, then this is the way to go. It's you might not be into the delay sound, but you don't have to make it obvious. It can be something that's just tucked behind your guitar sound, which gives you a real size. So I'm just going to switch this DD3 on. We're going to take a little look at that first of all. And I've got a little, kind of about 500 milliseconds. And again, the secret to using delays, like with reverbs, is not too much of it, and then it just adds to the kind of the weight of your sound. If I kick in a little overdrive pedal just here. You can hear it's not kind of overbearing. It's just kind of tucked behind there and just giving a kind of nice sort of groove to the sound. Always best to stick your delays, as I said earlier, in the effects loops of your amp. I want to just show you a little option, a little kind of trick sometimes that I use this DD3 for. It's kind of, I call it like a tick delay. So if we take our delay time and I want to bring it down to around, it's about 300 milliseconds, which I know on this pedal is going to be around about there. And I'm going to crank the effects level of it so it's almost the same as the actual guitar signal. And if I just check out what it's actually doing, I've turned the feedback all the way back. So the feedback is how many delays I want. So if I wind it that way, you're going to get more delays. But if I wind it all the way back, you're only going to get one repeat. So that's a pretty close, so you can get that kind of tick thing happening, which is what I wanted to show you, kind of, so I'm just sort of goofing around and kind of having fun with it, but you can see it's a kind of a cool little effect that you might need that for a certain song or somewhere, which is why it's nice to have. Maybe sometimes I've actually got two delays in my pedal board that sometimes I can have a close delay on, say, the DD3, and on the DD6 I could have a bigger delay. So we'll do some little combinations in a second. I'm just going to move on to the DD6 and show you what this has that the other one doesn't. So I've got that set to a nice delay. On the DD3, I forgot to mention, you can go up to 800 milliseconds, which is usually more than enough. 800 milliseconds is not quite a second, but it's a long old kind of delay to have. On this one, I think you've got slightly more. You can go up to 3,000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds basically, which is interesting. So I've got that kind of set on a kind of a longer delay tucked behind there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my tick delay and combine it with the longer delay and maybe go to a bit of a dirty sound and play that little riff I was playing again and see what happens when you've got delay on top of delay. So maybe sounds like this. I mean, there's hours of fun you can have, but if I just hit one note, you can hear what the combination of the two delays, what they're doing. If I go, can you hear that kind of slightly offset? It gives a kind of a size to the actual delay itself. It's kind of interesting. If I set our DD3 maybe to a longer delay time, and we'll see what happens. Let's just randomly kick it up, take that down, the effects level up on both of them. So if I hit a sort of can you see? You've got two delays kind of randomly kicking away there. So although it's good to have one delay, it's always, obviously it's always better to have two. So moving back to the DD6, there's a very, very, very cool function on the DD6, which I've only just kind of discovered because I've been using a DD5 for years. But this DD6, this is what this has. This has a little kind of phrase sampling option on it, and you can sample or play a phrase no longer than maybe 5 seconds into it, and keep laying on top of it, which is a very, very cool device. So I'm going to switch to our little phrase. It's called the hold section on it, all the way down to the bottom. And basically, let's see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to kind of jam away and see if we can get something cool happening. Kind of groove going away. I mean, we took some time to get there, but I'm just kind of jamming. I can play over that now. I've got a little groove going. see what I mean? It's kind of a handy little kind of fun device. If you were doing an intro to a song or something, you could kind of, you know, I don't know what was going to happen there. I'm just kind of grooving away and trying to come up with little parts. I kind of like putting parts on top of parts, and it's kind of all cool. So that's a very, very handy device to have in your effects board. It's kind of, it's a good party trick to have just in a delay pedal. So not only does it do the delay thing, it does a kind of little sample hold thing, which is really, really, really cool. It also does, I mean, just when you think it can't get any better, it does a little reverse thing, which it takes a delay and it will reverse it. So I'm just going to switch to the reverse section, which says it's right there, and see what that does. So if I don't know what's going to happen, let's try it out. Can you hear the kind of, it's delaying, but as it's delaying, the delay is kind of it's reversed. It's kind of, cool. So there we have our reverb and delays. I would say that a delay is one of those pedals, if I could only have, you know, 4 pedals, I would always sort of have a delay as one of those pedals that as an essential. So if you can grab one of those and use it to enhance your sound, it adds so much to a guitar sound. Not to be overused, not to be overdone, but it's just a lovely kind of piece of icing on hopefully what you already have is a good guitar sound. So that's the delays and reverbs.